Good evening, ladies as well as gentlemen. Papa Boris here with a new game. This is called Human Resource Machine. I saw it on Northern Line's channel, and because I hate videos for games that babble on for 3 minutes when you just want to see what the game is like, we're just going to go ahead and jump into it. This is my current file. We're going to go ahead and make a new one. You can pick like a different photo for your character. You're basically an office drone, you know, working in a gigantic skyscraper and climbing through the ranks as you go along. The actual mechanics of the game, though, if we get past the story, is you're basically solving puzzles. This is a puzzle-solving game. And you're solving the puzzles by writing programs. If you're a tech-savvy kind of person, you might actually recognize this as a crude and sort of visual form of assembly language. It's not the first game of its type to appear, but it's certainly the first game of its type that I've ever played. Now, the first few levels are tutorials, and these puzzles are incredibly easy. You're going to think that, like, what's up with this game? This game is a piece of cake. But it gets really hard. Trust me, I was a computer science major, and like about halfway through this game, I was actually getting stumped by the puzzles. So it's definitely not an easy game. But here, we are introduced to the two main commands in the game, inbox and outbox. Inbox takes the next number, or thing, sometimes there will be letters, into your hands, and outbox puts whatever you're holding in your hand currently into this outbox side. Over here, you will see instructions of what it is that you have to complete. For this first level, all you have to do is just take everything in the inbox and put it in the outbox. There are 3 things in the inbox, so we're just gonna pick each one up and put it in the outbox. When you click play, you get to see your person follow the steps. This little arrow tells you which step you're on. And if anything wrong happens, the thing stops and basically crashes like a program crash, then you gotta go and, like, you know, fix the code. You can also step through things step by step. So if you're having a hard time figuring out where you've made a mistake, you can hopefully, like, see, like, oh, it's from this step to the next one that I fucked it up. Okay. So, I'm gonna skip through all this. There's some really quirky story going on here that doesn't make any sense or lead anywhere, but I'll be clicking through it. So this one tells you that you have to do the same thing. You have to take everything from the inbox and put it in the outbox, but this time you're only allowed to use 3 commands. It's actually quite simple. You take it to the inbox, or take the next thing in the inbox, put it in the outbox, and then use the jump command. And the jump command allows you to, like, move to another place in the code and do what's happening there. So I'm just gonna jump back to the beginning here, and thus, after taking, I'm gonna use the step feature, taking something from the inbox, I'm putting it in the outbox. My little office bee is going to jump back to the beginning and repeat the process. Now, once you are like, okay, this actually works, you don't actually have to watch everything. You can move the slider to make everything go faster. And then confirm that you have, in fact, finished the level. So we're going to go through the tutorial levels here. Again, these are incredibly easy, but the puzzles do get incredibly hard. They're just introducing you to some of the basic mechanics here in these first few levels. Okay, so here we're gonna learn a new command, copy from. Copy from allows you to basically copy the value stored in a particular place on the carpet. So here we need to send a bug to the outbox. So I'm gonna copy from the B, which is the 4 space on the floor, and stick it in the outbox. Then I'm gonna copy the U, stick it in the outbox, then copy the G, and stick it in the outbox. For this one, we're ignoring the input file. This game does a pretty nice job of tutorializing, although like a lot of complicated games, it's like super simple in the tutorial, and then you hit the actual puzzles, and it's like, holy shit, this is impossible. So there's definitely like a moment of surprise where you're like, what the ballsack hell is going on here? Alright, so here we are introduced to another command. This is the copy to command. Copy to allows you to take whatever you're holding in your arms and copy it to one of the spaces on the floor. So this one says we want to take 2 things from the inbox and drop them in the outbox in reverse order. Alright, so basically I pick up this 4, but I don't want to put it in the outbox yet. I need to save it somewhere, so I can put the 7 into the outbox, and then I can pick up the 4. And put it in, and I repeat that process. So we'll take whatever's first in the inbox, copy it to the floor. Doesn't matter which of these places I use, they're all the same. Then I take the next thing from the inbox, I submit it. So that's the 7, it just got submitted. Now I need to get my 4 back, so I copy from 0, the same place I put the 4 in earlier. I'll be holding it in my hand, I stick it in the outbox, and I just finished up a pair of inputs, so I can now jump back to the beginning and repeat the process. So you can watch this all work. Eventually, part of the puzzles becomes not just successfully accomplishing the task, but let's go ahead and speed this up here, but trying to accomplish it by, you know, writing the fewest lines of code, and by doing the challenge in the smallest number of actions, which is interestingly not always the same thing as having the smallest number of lines of code. All right, can I skip this? Please tell me I can skip this. Oh God. Oh God, they're not letting me skip this stuff. Anyway.
Back to work, everyone.
Sorry, I would love to skip this. I don't know why any one of these buttons are skipping it. So yeah, these cutscenes have nothing to do with anything in the game. There's just some really bizarre, dark humor and just some nonsensical humor here, which I enjoy quite a bit. And apparently you're gonna have to see it in these videos, because I cannot skip past it. Okay, so there's our first few tutorial missions taken care of. Here's another one. So oh, by the way, each time you go up a floor, another year goes by. So like, I don't know how realistic that is, but your character does age over time. Okay, so here we are introduced to a new command. There does start to be some math in this game. This one, for each 2 things in the outbox, you add them together and put the result, or in the inbox, you add them together and put the result in the outbox. So for that, we're gonna need this add command. What add does is it takes the number that you're holding, adds it to a number that was previously stored somewhere. It has to be a place from the floor, and then you will end up holding the result. So the number that is on the floor doesn't change, but what you're holding does change. Let me just show that real quick. So I take what's in the inbox, I copy it to a spot on the floor, I take the next thing in the inbox, and I add whatever's on the floor. So let's just show you how this works. So you take a 2, put it on the floor. Notice, by the way, I throw, if you're holding something, when you take the next item in the inbox, you throw away whatever you're holding. So that's just a thing to note. Take the 9, and I add what is in here. So I used to be holding a 9, now I'm holding an 11, and the 2 didn't change. All right, so you can see how this is gonna work. Once I've got the sum, I put the result in the outbox, and then I'm done. So I just need to repeat the process for as many things as there are in the inbox, and for that I'll use a jump command. And again, just to reiterate, because I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I just can't stress this enough. This game is brutally difficult, just like incredibly difficult. And I say this as someone who has a degree in computer science, which you'd think would make this game a breeze, but no, it does not. So things get very, very hard. Okay, now here we reach our first fork. Basically, every now and then there will be this branch going down a hallway, and these are like extra puzzles. The game says that these are for advanced players only, and that these are like extra tough puzzles. Certainly they are optional. You don't have to ever complete them to complete the game. But in my experience, they're not really any harder, I think, than some of the regular puzzles. And just in my opinion. So I wouldn't shy away from them if you were to do them. In fact, in this video, we're going to go ahead and complete the first 3 of the extra puzzles, and there'll be a light mental challenge. They get pretty hard later on, but then again, so do all the puzzles. Okay, so our boss in this optional area is always going to be this lady. So here, for each thing in the inbox, you triple it, and then you put it in the outbox. So this kind of raises the puzzle. I should mention this now. Obviously, watching me play through this game is a complete spoiler. So if you like the game, just go buy it and play it. It's on Steam. Don't watch the rest of my videos unless you are stuck and want an answer to a puzzle. But if you don't want to play this game, you can follow me along on this journey as I solve these puzzles for you. So how do you triple a number? Well, tripling a number is the same as multiplying by 2 3 times, because 2 to the 3rd power is. Wait, that's actually completely irrelevant. Yes. So tripling it is not like, what am I talking about? Multiplying by 2 3 times? Anyway, tripling a number is the same as multiplying it by 3. Sorry, I'm thinking of a different puzzle. Multiplying it by 3, because to triple something means to multiply it by 3. Now, multiplication is really just a kind of addition. So multiplying by 3 is the same thing as adding a number to itself two more times. So basically, if you take the number 4 and you multiply it by 3, you get 12. You can also get 12 by saying 4 plus 4 plus 4. So that's what we're going to do here to simulate the tripling action, is we're going to take a number and add 2 copies of itself. So we take a 6 from the inbox, let's say, copy it to the floor, and now I add what I just copied down. So if you're following the steps, I take a 6, copy a 6 to the floor, add it on the floor. I get 6 plus 6 is 12, but 6 times 3 is 18. So I need to do this one more time. So now I'll be holding an 18, and I'll just show you these with the steps. Take a 6, put it on the floor, add it on the floor, get 12, add it on the floor, get 18. I'm ready to deposit this in the outbox. So like I said, these sideway puzzles aren't like actually substantially harder than the other puzzles you'd be seeing at this point in the game, but they're just there for bonuses, I guess, and to make people feel special. So after I outbox it, I'm done. I just need to go to the next value, so this is going to do it. I'll show the first ones at normal speed, and then we'll speed it up through the rest of it. Notice I override whatever is there if I copy to the same place. Wow, I can't believe how badly I explained this thing. Oh yeah, it's, you know, 2 to the 3rd power and nothing to do with tripling. Notice here, they're giving me a size challenge and a speed challenge. So I want to talk about this briefly. There's like 2 main ways to play the game. One way is just like, oh God, please God help me. Please, I just want to solve these puzzles and move on with my life, and that's totally fine. You can move along after just solving the challenge. But another component is to try to optimize your solutions, and there's 2 different levels of optimization. One is to use the smallest number of commands possible, and the other is to try to complete it in the smallest number of steps, which is actually kind of interesting. In programming, sometimes the smallest program in terms of the lines of code is not actually the most efficient program. Sometimes you can get a more efficient program by having more lines of code. You might wonder how on earth that is possible. And mostly, to oversimplify this, and I apologize, so no computer programmers are going to get super mad at me for simplifying it like this, but in this particular game, basically it has to do with how many jumps you're using. Every time you have a jump, that's an extra command. Whereas if you were to write the code a bajillion times over and over and over, it would actually be faster. So let me just be very clear here. Like, in this particular puzzle, there's 4 inputs. If I were just to copy this line of code 5 times, so instead of having 5 lines of code and a jump, I actually had, sorry, did I say 5 times? I meant 4 times. If I had this written 4 times, it would be 5 times 20 lines of code. I'd actually complete the challenge in fewer steps because I would just be doing the inbox, copy, add, outbox, and I wouldn't have to do this jump every time. So oftentimes in this game, you can make your speed optimization faster by not having jumps. There will be other things we'll see later on that can change your optimization, but that's kind of why there's 2 different metrics. Anyway, so that's the tripler room. Let's go ahead to the octuplier suite. So this one is the one where you have to multiply something by 8. Okay, there we go. So what's tricky about this game, normally, like if you're programming with a modern, sophisticated language, you can just like make up any numbers you want. You can just be like, you know, there's an integer 8, x, let it equal to 8. But in assembly, you're not allowed to just make up numbers. So part of the challenge of this game is sometimes like doing things, basically getting certain numbers without being able to just pick what number to put on the floor. Like I can't just like put an 8 somewhere and, you know, multiply or whatever. So this is where we have to use some number properties to figure it out. 8 is 2 to the 3rd power, which means that multiplying a number by 8 is like multiplying by the number 2 3 times. So in other words, 4 times 8, which is 32, is the same thing as 4 times 2 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, and times 2 is 32. So you can think of this puzzle as multiplying by 2 3 times. So the question then is, how do you multiply by 2? Well, multiplying by 2 is just the same as adding a number to itself. So what I do is I take a number from the inbox, copy it to the floor, and I add it to itself. So I've taken a 3, copied it to the floor, added it to itself, and I've gotten a 6. Now I copy the 6 to the floor, and I add 6 to itself. So now I'm holding a 12. I copy the 12 to the floor, and I add it to itself, and I'm holding a 24, which is correct, because 3 times 8 is 24. So multiplying by 8 is like multiplying by 2 3 times, which is the same as doubling the number 3 times. And to double a number, you simply add it to itself. The trick here is that you need to override what you've saved on the floor after each addition so that you can save on how many add commands that you're using. Anyway, after we do this, we'll have the correct number, so we'll put it in the outbox and go back to the beginning. So 3 becomes 6, 6 becomes 12, and 12 becomes 24. We've doubled the number 3 times, which is the same as multiplying by 8. So the first one worked, and we just jumped, so that means all the others will work as well, and that'll be that. Here, you might notice that, it seems quite easy to meet these optimization challenges, but there are actually puzzles later on where it is literally impossible to meet both optimization challenges with one solution, so you have to come up with different solutions. And there are later puzzles as well where there's lots and lots more lines of code that you have to use, so it's not like there's one obvious puzzle solution that just happens to meet the optimization challenges. It actually becomes a challenge to pull it off. Okay, the last one of this video is the Tetracontiplier. So here we're going to be multiplying by 40. Which is a little bit more tricky than multiplying by 8 because 40 isn't a multiple of 2. So the way that you have to approach this puzzle is to translate 40 into multiples of 2 because we're really, really good at doubling a number. Doubling a number is multiplying by 2. So we're really good at multiplying by 2. We suck at multiplying by any other number pretty much. So 40 is actually 32 plus 8. 32 is 2 to the 5th power. And then 8, of course, is 2 to the 3rd power. So for this puzzle, we're going to need to double a number 5 times. 32 is 2 to the 5th. And then we're going to need to add whatever 2 to the 3rd was, which we will have seen it along the way. So let's go ahead and do it here. The number in the inbox is 7 to start with. It's going to lead us to a pretty big value. I'm going to go ahead and talk about 5 as my example, even though the first number is 7 just because the numbers will be easier. So 5 times 40 is 200. I take my 5, copy it to the floor, and then I add it to itself. Copying something to the floor and adding it to itself is the same as doubling it. So now I'm going to be holding a 10. Then I copy the 10 to the floor and add it to itself. Now I'm holding a 20. I copy this to the floor and add it to itself. Now I'm holding a 40. I copy it to the floor, add it to itself. Now I'm holding an 80. And then I copy it to the floor, add it to itself. Again, this copy to the floor, add it to itself is the same as doubling. 80 plus 80, now I'm holding 160. At this point, to get from 160 to 200, which is 5 times 40, the ultimate goal I'm going for, I need to add 40. Well, I already had a 40 at one point. I started with a 5. This became a 10. I copied a 5 to the floor here. It became a 10. I copied a 10 to the floor here. I added it, it became 20, copied a 20 to the floor here. I added it, it became 40. And then at this point, I actually copied a 40 to the floor. So what I'm going to do is instead of copying it to 0, I'm going to copy it to 1. Oops. So now at this point, I have a 40 stored in the 1 slot. So at this stage, all I need to do is add the 40 again that I had saved on a previous step and stick this in the outbox. Now in this video, in this whole video series, these programs can get kind of tricky, so I'm going to be making mistakes. Let's just go ahead and try it out. Make sure this works. And then I get 7 times 40, which is 280. Hooray. And then the program stops, so the game gets mad at me for not having enough stuff. The game does a pretty good job of telling you what you screwed up, whether you're doing an invalid operation, or you put the wrong value in the outbox, or not enough values, or too many values. But here we got the right number, so all we do is jump back to the beginning, and we'll just blitz through it. Because if it works for one number, we know it's going to work for all of them. There will be puzzles later on that are not that's not the case. It's not the case that if it works for one, it's necessarily going to work for all of them. But for this one, it does. So here again, the size challenge and the speed challenge seems to just come like for free as a byproduct of solving the puzzle, but again, that's not always going to be the case. You can keep track of your progress in a variety of ways. When you beat a floor, it lights up. The floors that you can access are going to be blinking. And these dots indicate your optimization challenges. So size is the top dot. That means you found the smallest possible solution, or at least a solution that is as small as the one the game designer suggested. There are a couple of puzzles where I was actually able to beat their suggested size challenges. And then the bottom dot means that you did the solution within the minimum number of steps. And again, there will be times where you can actually beat the minimum number of steps challenge set forth by the game designers. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a whole playthrough for this game. There are 40 floors total of 40 puzzles or so. But I will go far, and so again, if you want to check out the video series, you can certainly do so, and it'll serve as kind of like a walkthrough for this game. Now, you might have noticed as I was scrolling here that actually this busy mailroom, this tutorial level, doesn't have this little dot down here. And you might be like, well, wait a minute, why is that? So let's go back and take a look. You can actually click on the management person and click the optimization challenges button to see what you're doing there. So we've beaten the size challenge to use 3 or fewer commands, but we did not beat the speed challenge, which is to complete it in 25 or fewer steps. The reason for that is every time I take a number from the inbox, put it in the outbox, I then do a jump command. That's like an extra step. So if instead of doing the jump command, I just hard copy the code, then I will actually be saving myself on steps because I'm not doing a jump in between each of these. So here, I've hard copied it, so I've taken care of 5 pieces of data, now 6, now 7, now 8, now 9. Actually, I'm not sure there's that many in there, are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 for sure. So I'll just do 7 hard-coded. I think there was more after that, but then I'll jump. And we'll see if that's enough to beat the speed challenge. Alright, yeah, so I actually beat the speed challenge, you know, just because I was willing to copy and paste the code that many times. So some of the early puzzles, this is a way that you can beat the speed challenge, is just instead of using jumps, copy and paste the code a couple of times. Here, obviously we failed badly at the size challenge, but if you go back and check out your optimization challenges, this will tell you what your best solutions did. So you do not have to complete both challenges with the same solution, and as I mentioned earlier, sometimes that will actually be impossible. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon with some more Human Resource Machine. Take care.